Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to our new session or a new series of sessions. I can never get it right. It's either or, but you get the point. It is going to be on interviews and how to get ready for your interview and interview questions. So our first one is really G is going to be talking about how she preps for an interview with a recruiter, and then me as a recruiter, I'm going to talk about my interview and really what I mean when I ask the questions that I ask for. Because although I really want to get to know all of you always, I also want to make sure that you can do the job, right? And that we're a perfect match for each other. So that's what this session is about. And I'll just do a quick intro. I'll have G introduce herself as well, and then we'll get going. Okay. Perfect. So I'm Karen. I think most of you know me already that are here. But I'm Karen Medina. I've been at NAV for about 4 years and a half. I've been doing UX recruiting since I started here, so about 4 years and a half. And I always talk about that I've learned the hard way, but the best way. So I looked at it, felt like millions and millions of portfolios and resumes. But I think I got really good at it, right? Like, I feel like I am very comfortable with looking at resumes and portfolios. So very excited to help out anyone here. So yeah, I'll just say that I've been recruiting before, but just in UX specifically. Obviously, it's just the 4 years and a half. And I talked about this earlier with G, and I forgot, but we did get a new VP of design. So I feel like we're both learning a lot of new tricks and tips. So more to come as well. Like it's really cool. Even me as a recruiter, I'm like, oh, like yeah, let's try this. That's awesome. So we're excited because we're gonna be able to bring you all a lot more of interesting things. So yeah. So hi, that's me. Hi, G. Introduce yourself.
Yeah, so my name is G. I've been a UX designer for almost a year now. I can't believe it's a year mark already. It felt like it flew by. And yet at the same time, it felt like it was 50 million years. But last year of May, I graduated boot camp and then I landed this job August. And ever since then, I've just been helping other entry-level UX designers kind of land their first role because we all know it's hard out there, especially now, right? More than ever. So yeah, pretty much Karen and I decided to put this together, like UX Coffee Chat, because I think it really brings like a unique perspective from both worlds, from the bootcamp graduate who's looking for the first job with zero experience, and then also the recruiter who's recruiting. So yeah, and with that, let's kick off to our first session of our interview series. So as Karen mentioned, yeah, so some of the things that I wanted to go over was the steps that I took in order to prep for interviews, and some of the key things that I think, looking back, that really helped me land my first role. So the first one I wanted to talk about was like the process itself, like what I did kind of step by step. And then I'll talk about more other pointers. So the first thing I did was I gathered a huge list of interview questions. So just Googling like what are the top interview questions, or the most commonly asked like UX design. And there's going to be two different type of set of questions just to look out for. One of them is going to be more behavioral and more high level, mainly from the recruiter, and then there's going to be more like very design specific, deep, most likely for the hiring manager. At this point, I didn't concentrate on the hiring manager because first I need to pass the recruiter interview in order to even worry about the second half of it. And then once I gathered all the questions, next thing I realized is that like I kind of didn't know what they really wanted to learn out of the question. Some of the questions are a little bit vague. So the next thing I did was I researched exactly what information the recruiter is trying to get by asking the question. So things like, tell me about yourself. So do you want to know about my dog, what my interest was when I was 3 years old? Like, what about it? It's a very broad question. So really researching like what it is, and then once you find out exactly what the recruiters know in order to make a decision of yes and no, it makes it so much easier for us to gear our answer and tailor our answers towards it. So the second thing was definitely researching all the questions, even questions that seem straightforward. Like doing the research, there are a lot of like nuances behind it that they're looking for, and it was really interesting to find. So things like, what are your strengths? So it's a very straightforward question. So we answer, what a greatest strength is. But really, like, what type of information are they trying to gather? Are they trying to gather our soft skills, our character, our hard skills? What about it? And once I understood that, it was a lot easier. So that kind of goes into my third point, is like, now that I understood what they're looking for, now it was the time to figure out what I wanted to communicate, right? How I wanted to answer the question. And at this point, I'm not forming sentences. I'm not forming like full thoughts. I just want to figure out like what angle, what's my story. So some of the things that I made sure I included in every single answer was any hard skills that I want to put forward, and also soft skills. Soft skills are super, super, super important, but it's very hard to say through a resume or something like that. So an interview is a perfect time. So trying to include that into the answers. And the last thing was achievements. So those three are like what I really concentrated on when I was thinking about like what my answer should be tailored around. And then the last thing I did was I jotted down, typed it all out, whatever it was. Sometimes it was paper, sometimes it was a Google Doc, sometimes it was like a notepad or my phone. And the idea here was 0 filters. There was not enough, there was no detail that was too small enough. There was no good, there was no bad, there was nothing. Everything that came up to my mind, I put it in the paper so that I can kind of now take a step backwards and really look at the whole picture, and then filter out what I think was important, what I think is relevant, what I think would really drive home what I'm trying to communicate. And then from there on, I would form a sentence and connect the dots and make sure that it really puts like my story out there. So that's kind of like a step-by-step on what how I handled like prepping for the interview questions. And let me tell you, it takes a long time. It takes an extremely long time. So if you find yourself like 2 weeks later and you're like, kind of nowhere near the end, it's normal. So that's in order to get a good answer, an answer that really makes an impact, it's gonna take a long time. So that is like a segue into my second big point, which is when I was like prepping and answering these interview questions, there was 2 things that really like stood out in my memory. The first one is the STAR method. I'm sure if anybody Googled how to answer, they've came across STAR. There is there's like variations, but STAR is kind of like classic. So it's a acronym, I think it is, for situation, task, action, and result. And the idea behind the STAR method is that when they ask a question, it needs to be structured in a way where they can understand the context, and they can understand what you actually did, right? Like be really clear about what you did, and then be really clear about the results. And so following the STAR method kind of really ensures that you have a structure, and you're not rambling, and you're not saying a story where it's hard to follow. So the reason why we tell the situation and the task is to give the recruiter or the interviewer a context of why we're about to tell you the story, what went on in the background, so they can put 2 and 2 together and understand what the problem was. Because if you don't tell the problem correctly, like what we're trying to deal with, it's hard for them to visualize the results that we brought, right? It kind of means nothing. It goes hand in hand. So once we give them a context, we tell them the situation, and then we tell them the task that we were tasked with. Then we tell them action, and being very clear about like, these are the steps I took. And that will kind of, go over some hard skills, some soft skills. And then at the end, we tie it all together and tell them the results we got through the actions we took to solve that issue. So then it's a clear structure, it's very easy to follow, and this kind of pretty much guarantees that you have a story and it's put together. So the STAR method is really, really important. And the second point of this like big topic is really, I think it's the most important thing that I'm going to be talking about today, is digging deep and really going beyond the surface level, because everyone is going to say the same thing. Everyone's weakness is perfectionism. Everyone's weakness is, it's the same thing. And I'm pretty sure every recruiter heard the same answer like a million times. So what makes us stand out, right? If we say the same thing other 50 people said, we're just gonna get lost in the crowd. So really like digging deep, and this takes the longest out of everything else, is like really figuring out what's unique about us. Like what makes me unique? What makes me stand out? You know, what are some of the things that I can bring to the table that the person next to me can't? And the idea is at the end of the interview, do I want to be interview number 52, which, and then don't forget as soon as, you know, we hit end conversation? Or do I remember like, oh, who's G? Oh yeah, she's the girl that did XYZ, XYZ. Yeah, we liked her, right? Which one do we want to be? In order to be the one that we remembered, is we would have to, again, really figure out our story, really figure out what we bring to the table, what makes us unique, and then be able to communicate that through our answers for the questions. And the idea behind like digging deep is there are things that everyone does that makes them special, and it's really hard to pick that out, especially when you're in a situation, I don't know about y'all, but when I just graduated, I felt like the imposter syndrome, like there's nothing special about me, you know, what can I bring to the table that the person next to me can bring? Like nothing. I have zero experience, I have nothing, I have an internship that only lasted a month, like what can I do? And there's a couple of ways to go about it. One, you know, I pretty much what I did was I laid out my entire like career story and really like picked it apart and really understood in this job what made me successful, in this job what made me fail, in this job what did I struggle with, in this job what did I stand out most. Like that really helped me figure out what my strength and my weakness are. And then the second thing is asking somebody. So I went to somebody and I was like, listen, this is my story. Like, what do you see that's unique? I asked she was a recruiter too. So she, you know, interviewed a lot of people. So she was able to pick out things that she necessarily didn't hear from a lot of candidates. So getting help from like third perspective is super, super helpful, especially when you're in a situation where you don't think you're good enough and you don't think you're special enough, which I promise you that's not true. You just have to figure out, you have to like, you know, dig deep and find it out. So those, and again, like that's the most important thing. You could be nervous, you could be shy, you could be quiet, you could be kind of rambling and not put together. But if your story is so good, you might get a second chance. And that was, you know, that was the hope. So, and then the last couple of things that I wanted to go over are just like a couple of things to keep in mind, or a little bit tips and stuff. So the first one is what kind of will help with everything that I just kind of summed up, what will help you understand what the recruiter is looking for and what will possibly make you special and stand out is talking to them. So like, I'm not talking about reaching out to the recruiters that you apply to and be like, hey, I applied, can I talk to you? No, like just random recruiters, maybe it's a friend's friends or someone, you know, you connected on LinkedIn, and just reaching out and be like, hey, I'm, you know, blah, blah, blah. I just wanted to, you know, like kind of ask you a couple questions and pick your brains. And the idea is like to understand the point of view of the recruiter. And only way we will ever understand what they're looking for is to talk to them and understand their point of view. So that really, really helped me out. I think in total, I probably spoke to like 6 or 7 recruiters and just kind of really picked their brains and like really understood like, hey, like what kind of candidates do you look for? You know, what are some of the things that stood out for you in the last several candidates? You know, what are some of the things that was like a red flag? And like really knowing that really helped me out. The second one is, so preparing questions to ask, especially at the end. When I used to hire for like my previous job, the interview would go great or like will go okay. And the biggest turnoff is when I'm like, all right, do you have any questions for me? And they're like, no. You know, usually it comes from shyness, usually comes from, you know, your mind blanking out. But really, like for me, when I hear that no, I think the first thing that pops into mind, I'm like, okay, they're not really into this. They're not really, like, they don't really care, or they did prep or something like that. So really like preparing, like, what do I want to learn about this company? And then like listing out the questions will help you at the end when they ask that question. Do you have any questions for me? And, you know, when your mind goes blank, at least you have that list of questions to go back to. And then also like making sure those questions aren't just, you know, generic. Again, the 5 million other candidates ask. really tailor it to them. Like dig into the company a little bit, understand the company so that your questions are relevant to them, maybe relevant to things that you're interested, their culture, their team, all that fun stuff. And Karen's going to go over a little bit more in detail, so I'm not going to go too into it. The third thing is a lot of the time it will be virtual. And the great thing about virtual is we can have notes in front of us and they'll never know. And the idea is not to read off of them, right? Because then it'll be obvious. The idea is just a quick bulletin so that when your mind goes blank, because when you're nervous, I don't know if you, but like mine literally just goes beep. At least I have something I could just scan real quick and be like, oh yeah, that's what I wanted to talk about. And just having like that fail safe or that cushion always made me feel better. And then the second to last is public speaking. So public speaking makes a really big difference in terms of interviewing, not just with the recruiter, but in general, because it's the way we present ourselves. You can say the same exact thing in the same word, but if someone doesn't have a great public speaking skills, it's a little bit boring, not engaging, right? So definitely brush up on public speaking, or just like really quickly on a high level learn like what makes someone good, what makes someone's public speaking skills good or not. So things like articulating your words, so you're not slurring your words, using variety of tones, right? Because that's pretty much what's going to make you sound energized and engaged, versus like super monotone and not energy, and it's super boring. And then the recruiter's like, oh God, when is this over, right? That's part of public speaking. Looking at the screen and not looking away. So yes, we're all nervous, we're all thinking, but you can't, talk to a recruiter looking at your second screen or your dog or the ceiling, right? Look at the screen. It really makes a difference. And then being confident. So the thing about confident, the biggest thing that really helped me out is naturally I'm not a confident person, but when I learned that confidence is a skill, not a personality, that was like a game changer to me. Because then that means that skills you can practice, you can learn. So there's a lot of content out there. There's a lot of books, a lot of YouTubes, a lot of, I don't know, everything that really talks about like how to practice that. And then the last bit in this one is like recording yourself. So I recorded myself answering some of my interview questions, and let me tell you, it is way different than you think it is. I thought I was being all excited and energized, and I listened to it and I'm like, oh my God, I sound so like dead. So then that helped me like figure out how to revalue myself and how to like, I guess, change my public speaking. That was not English, but you get the point. And then the last point I wanted to make is practicing. It really, really, really makes a difference, because again, like, I don't know about everyone else, but when I was writing these answers, I had to almost memorize them, right? It wasn't like some of them, because it was put together and it's more something professional, it wasn't like innate, I guess, if that makes sense. So it was almost like I was telling someone else's story. And practicing it over and over and over and over again, in front of people, not in front of people, in my head, out loud, in front of the camera, recording myself. After a while, it became so natural that when I was interviewing and someone hit me with a question that I didn't prepare for, because my story, I really, really memorized my story. I really knew the story that I wanted to tell. I was able to answer all the questions. Good. All the answers well. So yeah, practicing really, really makes a difference. But that pretty much wraps up like how I went about everything and what I did to prep for the interviews. And now I'm going to pass it off to Karen, because it'll go a little bit more detail into each like questions.
Thank you, G. That was awesome. That was so good. I was like, oh yeah, she has good. When you were talking about the public speaking skills, I was like, yes, I also am not, like, I get really nervous, especially when doing these. Like, the reason I started doing this is so I can get better at public speaking, because I get really nervous. So that was one of the reasons. So yeah, it's really interesting. You just have to practice, I guess. And I apologize, my dog just grabbed the noisiest toy right now. Just have to practice. I do also do the Superman stand. Like, I know it sounds really dumb, but I'm like, okay, you got this. And I kick it off. Or sometimes it helps me, like I have my standing desk, but I don't have it today, but usually I just stand up so I can feel a little more like, okay, I got this, I can do this. So I don't know, I just like to do those, just FYI. So as you were saying that, I was like, oh yeah, I do. But it's a practice, right? It's a practice because I'm like, I have to turn it on and turn it off. It's not always easy. So yeah, awesome. So I'll talk about the questions I ask as a recruiter and the purpose of the questions that I ask. And also like just a quick tip, and I don't know if this is gonna sound like really harsh or something, but this is what it is. It's just my feedback, so just take it or leave it, whatever you want. But as a recruiter, like when I'm interviewing, right, like I come across as like your best friend, right? I want you to be comfortable. I want you to tell me everything. I want you to feel comfortable with really opening up. But also remember that you are doing an interview at the end of the day. So remember to have fun, be comfortable, but also be like, okay, I'm still interviewing and I still want this job. So bring in that as well. I do see it a lot lately where people are like, yeah, this and this. I'm like, okay. And then I'm like, okay, but I still don't know if you can do the job. And then we're like 30 minutes in and I still don't know, right? So I'm like, oh, so just a tip on that, FYI. And then also I'm going to be talking about a little bit about the questions that I ask and what I'm looking for. Again, like I said before, right, this is me. It can be another recruiter, but just take it or leave it there. So when I usually ask, sorry, let me try to stop it. No, I cannot. Okay, so when I usually ask, tell me about you. I used to ask it like that. Tell me a little bit about you, and then sometimes people would go off and tell me about their personal lives, which it's cool, but at the end of the day, it doesn't tell me if you can do the job or not. So then that became a problem. So then I started asking, tell me a little bit about you and your work experience. So I feel like that one came a little better, right? So then people tell me probably like 2 things about them. Obviously, we always bond about dogs, and then we move on, right? So I can go for hours, but I can't do that in an interview. And then they tell me like really their skills and connect, and I like how G was talking about like her story and really dig in deep, because it will help you, right? Even if you do get stuck in a question, like it will help you like come back to it and answer it, right? So also quick tip, read the job description because most of the time it is, I know it's minimum, but it is the recruiter and the hiring manager writing the job description. So when we do tell you about you, even if you don't have the skill, because sometimes you don't have all the skills, but if you can connect it to like, hey, I know they talked about they want somebody that can multitask. I can talk about to them, I don't know, I babysit 3 kids and 2 dogs. This is how I multitask, right? Like you connect your skills to what that is. So I would highly encourage you to think about it that way. Even like with G telling her story, right? Like I still remember, I talked to a lot of people, and I mean, I don't remember 90% of them, but I remember the ones I hired, obviously, and the ones that have a good story. So then I do remember when she was telling me, hey, like I do have, maybe she didn't have specific UX design experience, but she did have design experience in like swimsuit wear, right? She did like door-to-door sales. Like I remember all of those things that I was like, oh, this is cool, right? Like there's certain things that I'm like, oh, okay, she can connect this to this, right? So it is important to know your story, to remember it, and to really point out like really what makes you proud. And I know it's scary, but you know who you are, and you're strong, right? Like you're strong, you know what to do, you know what's good and what's not, and so keep that in mind on that one. That's what I'm looking for, right? Like, can you do the job? Can you connect your skills to what we're looking for? And even if you cannot, like if you don't have the skills, just connect it, right? Connect to anything that you have. So keep that in mind. And then we move on. I also asked, what are you looking for in the next company or job that you join? The reason that I asked this question is because I want to make sure that we can also make you happy, right? Like I think that, and I was telling G about this, I was like, oh, it feels like a dating app, right? Because we're both like starting to connect with each other, asking questions, and then let's see where that takes us. And when you are, right, in those apps, like you're asking like questions like, okay, like, is this gonna make me happy? Is this what I'm looking for? So I would also recommend for you to really look at what makes you happy at a company. The reason that I asked this question again, right? Like I want to make sure that we're a good match. I want to make sure that we can make you happy. I want to make sure that the manager is going to make you happy. I want to make sure that the team that you're going to join is going to make you happy. So I do need to know that you know what you're looking for. because sometimes people don't know really. So then it does become a problem when it's like, okay, why are they not happy? Like, we didn't know this from the beginning, right? And it's like, it's not that we didn't know, it's like you also didn't know what made you happy. And I do understand that. I know, right? I'm in recruiting. I see the messages on LinkedIn and everybody's looking for jobs, but really be picky, like be picky and really understand what you're looking for, because you spend all this time looking for the right job. But really learn about you and what you're looking for. If it's important for you to travel all the time, look for a job that's going to help you travel, right? If it's important for you to stay home and be with your dog all day and work from home, then do that, right? If it's important for you to have a balance, that you're like, hey, I'm going to a dentist appointment in the morning, but I know that I have to work later to finish my work, then that's fine, right? Like, but really, I would recommend you to dig deep on like what's going to make you happy, and what you're looking for, because I do see a lot of the times that not a lot of people know this. Like, it's just about money, which, I mean, I love my money, don't get me wrong, pay me, right? Give me all my money. So but we're all looking for that, right? We all want the comp, so just come with more. Think about other things that would make you happy as well. Like, if you want to learn, right? Or if you're like, oh, we have a VP of design, so you know that really you are going to get that extra design experience from someone that's at a higher level, right? Like those things. So yeah, cool. Okay, portfolio question. I talk a lot about portfolio questions, so I'm gonna try to not go super crazy on this because because I feel like I always say the same thing. So that's why I'll do like the hip hop version of it. So I do always ask for a portfolio question. I do, like, right before, I said this before, so no shame in my game, but I do look at the portfolio before I even look at a resume, okay? Because I do want to make sure that that design style fits us. So at the time that I'm ready to ask you about a portfolio question, I already know or have an idea of which one I want to look at. But I do ask, I usually ask, hey, tell me, let's pick a project, whichever one you want, the one that gets you the most excited, right? I usually ask that because I love to see the excitement, right? Like, because it tells me like, okay, if you're really excited about this project, even on the bad days, like, you're still gonna wake up and be like, that was a bad day, this is a good day, I still love my job, I love to design, right? Like, it's really important. Like, that passion, like, really does go a long ways. I don't know if you guys saw the one with Jen, with the hiring manager last time, and she did talk about that too, right? Like, it does, like, that passion really goes a long way, because even on the rainy days, when they're not good, like, if you have that passion, like, the next day is gonna be better, and that happens, right? Like, so that goes a long way. So I asked that question. So I do recommend that you have a project that you're super, super passionate about, that you love, that makes you happy, that gets you excited, but also, again, right, that has the problem, that you're able to talk about what the problem was, that you're able to talk about what you did, and that you're able to talk about the solution, right? Like, what came out of it. And even if nothing came out of it, you can just say nothing came out of it yet, but it's ongoing, right? So even that's fine. The other one that I would also recommend that you have ready to go, just in case, is one that has to do with the industry that you're applying to. So because that one goes a long way too, right? Because then you can connect, like, oh, hey, I already worked on this, I started on this. I had somebody that did an insurance for us, and then I had G also did a financial one for me as well, which I was like, okay, I already know I kind of want to talk about this one. So it was cool that she also wanted to talk about that one. So I was like, yes. And it's sometimes, if I don't get what I'm looking for, I will ask again. I'll be like, hey, let's look at this one now. Because I want to ask more questions, right? So and also ask the recruiter what they're looking for, because sometimes I get both ends. So I get one that they talk for 5 minutes and I'm like, okay, and then I get the ones that talk for like 30 minutes and I'm just like, okay, I have no time to ask you more questions, let's move on. So yeah, so there's that. And then I totally lost my train of thought. I don't know, I got too passionate right there. So yeah, so pick your portfolio projects that you really love, because they're going to be so much easier to present also. And also, if they ask you questions, it's going to be easier because you already know the answer, right? And again, I talked about this, but just really quick, don't have a million projects in your portfolio, because you might not remember all of them, right? So have some that you remember, because then you can highly speak about them. And then again, as a recruiter, what they're looking for, what I look for, and I tell people I'm looking for, again, the problem, what you did, and what the solution was, because I'm not a designer by trade, but I'm really good at following along. on what we're looking for and what you did and what you accomplished, because I can move that forward to the hiring manager as well. Okay. Okay, perfect. And then I also like to ask about what are like the top 3 things that will make you accept our offer. I ask this because at this point I'm selling, right? At the end of the day, I talked about this, right? Like I'm a salesperson too, so I have to be like, okay, what am I gonna do to close you to come with us? So again, think about really what's important for you. Like I mentioned before, like if you're telling me, right, like if you're telling me like, hey, like I want to make this amount of money, like at my current job, I make this amount of money, but I work 24/7, right? Then I can be like, okay, well, we can't give you that much because we are a smaller company. But I can tell you that you're not going to be working 24/7, right? I can tell you that you're going to make it home to dinner, because then you know, you're an adult, you can have that balance, right? And also remember what you told the recruiter, because people don't remember that. And then I get stuck with like, wait, what? They're like, that's not what I said. I'm like, that is what you said. So remember, right? Remember what you're looking for when you're negotiating, because it goes back to you as well. To like, again, like maybe if they don't have the amount of money that you're looking for, but maybe they have unlimited PTO, right? They have like perks, that they give you food every month, things like that, that maybe you have every other Friday off, right? Things like that. So also remember, because that's how you're also going to be able to negotiate and look at an offer that works for you as well. It's going to make you happy. Okay, and then questions to ask a recruiter. I would recommend for you to ask questions to the recruiter, because sometimes it really throws me off. I don't know why. When somebody doesn't ask questions, I'm like, wait, what happened here? Like, did I answer all your questions? But I know that I didn't, right? So please ask questions. I would what I would recommend that you ask, and again, I would recommend that you ask, okay, why do you stay? Like, or why do people stay? What makes them happy? I would recommend that you ask something like, what is the turnover? And you can say in the company or in the team. A big one that we always get, which I don't know that it matters now, but it's just kind of cool just to see how companies worked. The whole COVID thing, right? Like, say, how did you react to COVID? How did you take care of your employees? Because you also want to make sure that you're in a safe company, right? So I would recommend asking that. I would recommend asking about like, you know, what is a manager? How, you know, how does she like to manage? What are they looking for? What do you think would make like a successful candidate in this role? What does a bad day look like? What does a great day look like? I would ask all of those questions, because it's going to help you too, right? Like decide also if this is where you want to be. Sometimes like if somebody and I have stopped interviews before where I'm like, okay, let's talk about this. Because sometimes people just tell me like, oh, like if they're telling me that, they're like, okay, I need a job that's going to make me happy. That's going to be A, B, C, D, E, and that's it. I'm going to be like, no, this is not the place for you, right? Like, but if it's something that it's like, hey, I know that some days are, you know, brighter and some are not, and the sky is yellow or the sky is red, but we're gonna move on and figure it out. Then I can tell them, right, this is the place for you. So also that's why it's important to ask those questions, right? It's like, what does the company look like? Like, what does it look like on a good day? Because you want to understand if it's a good place for you as well. And I know that I talked about this already, but like there's a lot of, you know, a lot of people looking for jobs, but also like you have to take care of yourself and you have to see what's important for you and what's going to make you happy in a job. So I do recommend again to be very, very picky with where you go, because there's a lot of great companies and there's a lot of not great companies. So ask the questions, don't be shy. Like ask the questions, because I hope that everybody answers them, right? Like as honest as they can. I know that I try to at least, and if I don't know, I'm just like, oh no, let me ask. So yeah, so I think those were my tips and tricks. The next sessions we're gonna be a little like, we're probably gonna divide them to like what questions to ask like a hiring manager, right, and what they're looking for, and then the team and things like that. So then we'll get a little more specific into those questions as well, because they are different and they are looking for different things. At least they should always, because if you get the same question in one interview session, like I would be worried. So they should be different. So yeah, I think that's me. Did I skip anything, G? I'm like I feel like I talked longer.
No, I think you covered everything that we wanted to.
Perfect, perfect. Are there any questions that we could answer for any of you right now? You can ask it in the chat or just on mute. It's fine.
I have a question. I know it's it's probably not part of your scheduled program, but would you guys be able to take like 5 minutes or just a couple of minutes to kind of do a mock salary negotiation and maybe just kind of share your thoughts of like kind of what you're thinking from, especially from your point of view?
Yeah. When do you want to do that? Right now?
Well, do we have a couple of minutes? Are we here until 3 or?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we can test it if you want. I usually, when it comes to
I didn't mean to
negotiating,
put you on the spot. It was just,
I know.
when you were talking about it, I was just kind of like, it would really be
Yeah.
good to get that kind of insight.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be a today type of thing. It could be somewhere in a series or
Okay. Yeah,
whatever.
maybe.
Sorry,
Okay, maybe
Karen,
in
I
the
didn't mean to
next.
put
No,
you on the
you
spot. So.
no, I'm just thinking, like maybe in the next years. I only say because for us we have a like a clear pay scale, so everybody knows how much everybody gets paid.
Oh, okay.
That's the only reason I'm like, I don't know, but I did get a really good email. So if you need a template of an email of somebody negotiating a comp, it was really good. So that's
Okay.
what I was thinking about. So maybe in the next session I can have that ready for you if that's okay.
Yeah, sorry, Karen, didn't mean to
No,
put you
you're
on the
good.
spot. It was when you were talking, it was like, that was just a kind of question that popped in. So
Yeah,
thank you though,
no,
appreciate it.
that's a good one. I'm gonna have that one. Perfect.
I like that kind of having like a. So we did at one point want to have like a mock interview where we kind of do it publicly so everyone can learn from it. So yeah, but I think that's like honestly till now I still don't know how to negotiate. I feel like every time I get a job I Google it and then never
Yeah.
happens. Never goes the way I want it to.
It's hard. It's a hard topic. It's a hard
Yeah.
topic. Even me, I'm like, oh, I don't know. It's usually the hard manager, yeah.
Interested about that one. But yeah. Alana, I don't know if I keep say your name wrong.
No, you're saying it right.
Right.
Thank you. This was all super helpful. Thank you for doing this. I especially like the part where you're talking about knowing what makes you happy. I had an interview yesterday and they asked me a similar question and I didn't know if it was too broad, what I was saying or anything like that, but you can answer that really well. So thank you for that.
Good.
My question is about the recruiter space. I'm just a little confused about, so I am working with a recruiter that's with a consultancy, but then there's also recruiters that work with actual companies within the company, right? Which is what your position is?
Yes, yes. I work internally with the company, yeah.
Cool. So are there differences between the questions you would ask being in the consultancy versus like with an agency?
Not really. The agency, I think the big difference that I've seen is that the agency, they get a percentage of when you get hired. So they usually get a percentage of your salary. But we're both looking for the same thing. I think the difference is that maybe me being an internal recruiter is that like I really like I understand, right? Like the company, the people, I understand what we're looking for, like where we're going, the goals, where the external recruiter might not for the other company that they're not as connected. But really they're both trying to help you. Like I'm trying to hire and they are too because they want their money. Sometimes I'm like, why can't we get a percentage? Unfair. But we can't. But we don't. So I think it doesn't really. I don't think it's a huge difference. I think either recruiter that you get will help you get a job.
Okay. And is it different like when you do talk to the recruiter, are there different stages? Like when would you talk to them? Would it be like the phone screen? Is that when you'd first start talking to them? Like how does that work?
Yeah. So like when I would come in to ask my questions, is that what you mean? I don't understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the first call. Like I throw it all out there and I talk about all of it, right? Like these are just my questions that I always ask. Like, but then I always ask additional questions. Like if there's something that maybe I feel like I didn't get the answer that I needed, or that I was like, it says in your resume that you can do this, but you're not telling me, I might ask it again, right? But yeah, usually I do all of my questions in the interview call right away. Yep. So that's the one. I feel like some people do take it for granted because they're like, wait, is this? I'm like, yeah, this is. I'm like, you realize I'm the one holding the door. Okay. So just be ready, right? Because sometimes people, yeah, don't realize, but it's like you do. That first impression is with the recruiter because they're the ones that are talking to the hiring manager and presenting you as a candidate to them, and then they're the ones that they're like, yeah, I want to talk to them, or no, I don't, because they don't have X, Y, and Z. So just be prepared. Even if it's a chill one, just be ready with your talking
Okay.
points. With your talking points. Yeah.
Yeah, I liked that was super helpful. Thank you. I liked what you said, G. Is that the right way to say your name? G. Just about going through and almost like memorizing it so
Yeah.
that when it happens, you're not reading something, but then it seems more natural when you're talking.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've definitely done that before, like the recording myself.
Nice.
And it was not how I thought I sounded.
Yup. When I heard back my recording, I was like, all right, I don't say and I don't say but I say so like a million times.
Oh.
I know, right? Weird. But yeah, it's once like you practice over and over and over and over and over again, you'll be surprised with the answers that you come up with and like questions you weren't prepared for. After you answer it, like the first thing that goes through my head was like, yeah, I know that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, ladies.
Yeah.
Is there any other questions?
Hey, Karen, so when do you develop kind of like a reservoir of people that you might have interviewed that maybe not have been too good for the specific position, but then and say another position opened up that might be going, well, this person wasn't great for this position, maybe they're too junior, too senior, or whatever. Do you have like a kind of a mental Rolodex that you kind of tap into people, like you keep them on file, or just kind of make you got your own little secret database? And
Yes, we do have we use Greenhouse. We work with Greenhouse, and that's where we add our notes. So
Mhm.
yeah, like you said, maybe there's those roles that are like, yeah, like maybe they're too junior, too senior, and I put them there, and then we do little tags on it.
Oh,
So that
okay,
way I
so
can always pull
yeah,
back people to be
okay,
like,
so
oh,
like other recruiters in your company, you say if your company was bigger, you'd have multiple recruiters, so they could all kind of look at that,
yeah. Mhm.
going, when they write the position up and stuff, they could go, oh yeah, this, we at least you have people to start with or look at initially. So,
Yep.
okay.
Yeah, but usually for me, it also helps. Like I do have people just reaching back to me
Mhm.
also, like so that helps you as well. Like if the recruiter did leave that door open, like to stay connected, I would take it. And I would check in because sometimes I do get people checking in back to me, be like, "Hey, Karen, just want to see if any new roles opened." And
Mhm.
then that also helps me to be like, "Okay, let me go look at my notes." I'm like, "Oh yeah, I have this too." So I would recommend that as well because sometimes there's a ton of people, or we just move too quick. But I would recommend if that recruiter left the door open, just a simple hello, I hope you're good, like blah blah blah. Just seeing if there's any new roles open, or I looked at uh the web page, right? Apply for this role, trying to see if I can talk to you. So just keeping that connection again with the recruiter, that goes a long way as well.
Mhm. Just keeping those contacts warm, basically. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because even if it's nothing if there's nothing at NAV and I know that there's another company, because I feel like a lot of us really know each other too, so then we can help you make that connection as well. So even if it's not with that company, but there's others, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, great. Thank you.
We have a question from Bernicia. I hope I said your name right. So I may have missed it since I joined a little late, but what does the interview process usually look like? I think Karen, you could definitely speak to that a little bit more. And then the second part is, what is the best way to navigate whiteboard assignments if given? And I'll kind of touch upon that after Karen goes
Okay.
around. First one.
Yeah. So the interview process right now we changed it, but I can talk about a little bit about the junior and the senior. So right now the junior interview for the UX, it looks like myself, and I know they're long, so I'm sorry. Like, I hate long interviews, but we're testing it out because we did get a new VP of design. But for us, usually, it has been like me, and then it is the hiring manager, and then it is the team. So it's usually somebody that you're going to be working with. So somebody either from product or engineering or UX. What's Lucy's title? I always forget it. Strategist or strategist, right? So then you'll do that one, and then you'll usually do an HR interview as well with an HR business partner, and then that's it. And then now the one that we currently did for senior UX designers, it was myself, it was a hiring manager. Then we did it's called a jam session. So where you go and then you do work with Figma. So you're not really presenting your portfolio, but it's just a walkthrough of like, oh, walk us through kind of your thought process. And it's just a Figma live session. And then we did a virtual portfolio session where you have myself, the hiring manager, the strategist, you have the designers, and then you have somebody from engineering and somebody from product. And I think that's it. I know it sounds like a lot. And then, but it's really good, I promise. And then from there, you present for about 45 minutes. We ask questions. And then 30 minutes you have specific with the product lead, and then 30 minutes with the engineering lead. And then you end with an HR business partner. So the senior ones are a little longer, but they're so good. Like I really enjoyed it. I know it's a lot for the person, but they're really cool because also you get that specific time, right, with the team and who you're working with and what are the problems. So usually that's what those look like. So if you do see a long one, they're normal. I'm sorry. Those designers.
I think I think a lot of people get surprised on how long it takes to interview designers. And I know there's a lot of people complaining about it on LinkedIn saying like it should be one, but like really sitting on the other side, and I got the privilege to sit in some of these interviews. And the first thing I thought to myself with just one portfolio was like, I still don't know enough about them to really be able to commit to them. Because like the thing about designers is that we have such impact in the product. And so whoever we bring on is going to have direct impact in the product that we put out. And that
from beginning to end, and our customers. Yeah, it's important.
Yeah. And it really is. And with UX, there's so many things that go into it. It's not just like pretty design. So like with fashion, I felt it was a little bit easier because there's less layers, less depth. But with a UX designer, we need a lot of skills, and cross-functional team, being able to work on a cross-functional team is huge, and it's probably the biggest learning curve on my end as a new designer. And that's why we do have to meet with the PMs and the engineers and all that fun stuff. And right now it sounds very intimidating because right off the bat, like I don't even know what a PM does. And I will tell you right now, I've been almost here for a year, I still don't know what they do on a day-to-day basis. But then there's a lot of content out there. In order to prep for the interview and to answer the question like, how do you work with the PM? I literally Googled it, and there's YouTube videos where people walk through. Literally one of them was like, this is how I hand off my designs to an engineer, and she kind of like powered through everything that she does, and I used that to like buy or cushion my answer. So there are ways to do your research and how the PM and the engineers and UX work together to be able to get some kind of context for those type of interviews and questions. But yeah, and in terms of like the whiteboard assignment, so I will be very honest. I haven't done a whiteboard assignment for this current interview, but I've practiced many of them. But I don't feel comfortable enough to really give you the answer because I don't think that my experience is extensive enough for it. Hopefully Karen and I are trying to get the VP in the future to, hopefully comment on one of this, and he will for sure be able to address that. But from the little bit that
we already asked a little, we're like, oh, you're gonna be invited.
Yeah, we're planting the seed. So
yes.
Yeah, but from the very little thing I know about whiteboard assignment, it's all about understanding how your brain works, how you go about the problem, how you go about picking out the information. Like they're literally trying to get into your brain. So when you are when you are trying to figure out the problem to, brainstorming the solution, everything that goes in your brain and to be able to say it out loud and communicate it, and pretty much like, giving like a little projector into your mind is the whole point of a whiteboard. They're not looking for anything pretty. They're looking for the messiness, the ugly side of the product. So that's pretty much like, that's why whiteboard assignments exist, because you can't get that from a portfolio. Because when you do a portfolio presentation, you see the pretty side of things. But yeah, but besides that, I don't think I'll be able to give enough correct information.
And
But
then
yeah.
it takes, I said that question that how long does it take? I don't like to do it in one day because that's just wild. So I do try to spread them. So usually my call is 30 minutes, with the BP is 30 minutes. The jam session is about 45 minutes. The portfolio review is 45 minutes, and well, an hour. And then 30 minutes, 30 minutes. So then however long that is, like 3 or 4 hours, kind of. So about that. And I cut it short because it was longer. I was like, how about we try this? So it is a little wild. Also, I wanted to mention something too. With your recruiter, try to like ask them to help you with like, if you get a good recruiter, if they can help you through the process. Because what I've been doing with this process now, like I've told them the whole way through, like, this is what you're gonna expect. Think about these questions that they could be asking, because I already know the plan, right? Like, and at the end of the day, like I'm also there to be a teammate. Like I want my hire to get hired, right? Like I'm presenting you because I want you to get hired also. If not, I would never move you forward, right? If I didn't think about you, I'd be like, no, sorry. So also like you have a good recruiter if they're willing to help you, and also just ask them to, right? If they're not, you can also ask, what should I expect? But I hope that nowadays we're all getting better, right? At helping people moving through and what to expect and how to really be successful. Like obviously you might not be the only person, maybe like my top 3, right? But at least like you have a higher chance when you're more prepared and when you're ready to, have a little time through like think about what's coming and what's being asked. So, yeah.
If anybody, any other questions? If not, I have one. No? Okay. I guess my question was, so it's nerve-wracking. A lot of people don't have like the public speaking. Oh wait, no, we have to have a question. I'm gonna prioritize that. Is the process the same for internships and apprenticeships?
No, the internships, I haven't done one for design yet, but I've done one, well, not for UX design, but I've done it for graphic designer, and it's shorter. It's just me and the hiring manager, and that's it. Like it's a lot shorter because it's a different process. So it depends on the level, right? Like the junior UX, it's shorter than the one the one that I just shared with everybody and their mamas. Like that's for a senior level. The junior UX is a lot shorter than that as well. So it just kind of depends on the levels, because there's specific things that we do need at a certain level and what we're looking for. So that's why they're different. But the recruiter should be able to tell you that from the beginning, right? Like this is what the process looks like and walk you through it every step of the way.
Yeah, so if anybody else has a question, cut me off. Obviously your questions are more priority. But so yeah, for those who don't naturally have like a really good public speaking, they're shyer. Does that turn you off? Like as soon as like they're shy or they're quieter, like is that like a no for you? Or are there certain things that sorry, this is for you, Karen. Or is there certain things that they can prepare for, or I don't know, answer a question in a certain way where you can look past that shyness?
It doesn't turn me off, but I do ask them. I'm like, are you nervous? Sometimes yeah, like, are you nervous? And they're like, yeah, I am really nervous. I'm like, oh, no worries. Let's talk. How are you doing? So I try to bring it back and make them, not make them, but, help them like talk a little more. But I do ask, because sometimes there's people that I see their resume and their work and it looks amazing, and I talk to them and something doesn't click. So I do try to ask, like, are you okay? Don't be nervous, right? Like, I'm just trying to get to know you. Like, really, that's all it is. Like, don't be nervous at all. So then I do try to have a little more of a conversation before jumping into my questions. So I do ask. So it doesn't turn me off at all because I do, like, at the end of the day, right? We're all different. Like, not everybody is the same, but I just want to know if they can do the job. And also, we use this thing in HR. I don't know if it's, but we use like the different colors. We do a color wheel. So sometimes, like, I do also have to look at that, right? Like, I can't have a million sunshines. Sometimes I need somebody that's a different personality. So also, I look at those things. I know I'm so cool. So no, it doesn't turn me off. No,
Okay,
because
cool.
there's things I'm looking. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, sweet. Well, yeah, I think we're out of time.
Yes.
Good. Karen, you want to close us off? It's usually
Yeah.
your thing.
Yeah, for sure. So we're ready to go. We are going to be doing the sessions. I think we're going to do them once a month now. If there's any feedback, please share it with us. Is there something that you're like, hey, can you maybe do a series about this? We're open to any feedback. We're open to help in any way that we can. And then we'll post the video later. So if you want to share it with any of your friends, feel free to share it. And again, if there's anything that we could answer for you, please let us know. And G, I don't know if you wanted to advertise your YouTube channel really quick before we say bye. But you have a new one. You have a new one.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's still UX coffee chat, but I hijacked it for my own stuff. So I started out a
No
new
respect. No respect. No respect.
I started a new series called Eternal Portfolio Quest, and it's pretty much me just reviewing people's on my own, like it's not like a live chat or anything, on my own end, and then just posting on YouTube for the public, so that individual have a review for their portfolio, but also a lot of others designer can look at it too. I do have like a form for everyone to fill out, whoever's interested. You can just find it in my LinkedIn, but yeah. So yeah, it's a hijacked, not a new YouTube channel.
Perfect. Well, thank you all for coming, and we'll talk to you soon.
Guys.
Thank you so much.